Welcome, everybody. As I said previously, this bi-weekly meeting is now a joint meeting between the providers and the passes. And we want to go through general project status as we go. So please stop me at any time with questions. One other piece of business. We are being joined today at 10:30 for a vendor spotlight by Avery Pash is going to join us from Spencer Health Solutions, where they have a pretty well, she'll tell you about it, but their medication management solution, I think will be very interesting to everybody on the call. So she's going to join us at 10:30 and take us through to 10:45, which will likely end the meeting, as long as I get my stuff going now. So here we go. All right, so the first thing I want to show you is what are the work streams that we're working on? And just at a high level, where are we at with them? So when we're approaching this project, we have 6 major deliverables for this project. The first around making waiver recommendations. Second around, you can read these as well as I, but provider engagement and education, and then DHS and PASS engagement and vendor engagement. So each of those pillars are different ones. The pilot implementation, which is actually the work of the pilot, getting people assessed and technology ordered and technology approved and technology implemented for individuals and members and beneficiaries. And then sustainability planning. So making sure that when this pilot project is done at the end of March, that we have set it up and in conjunction with DHS and all of the stakeholders in a way that there'll be a seamless as possible a transition into a sustainable enabling technology model. So all of that stuff is on the table for this project, and we don't talk about all of that during this meeting typically, where we get a little bit more into the weeds of the day-to-day with what the providers are doing. So I want to let everybody know kind of where we're at on all 6 pillars. Hopefully we'll spend about a minute on each of these next slides, each of those pillars. And again, please stop me if you have any questions as we go. All right, so the waiver recommendations, the accomplishments basically are project to date. What have we done? And so these are pretty high level accomplishments, and then what the major next step is. So our grant team was tasked by DHS to research Arkansas's structure, and their existing processes, also understand their existing waivers, and that work has been completed. That analysis has been completed. We also created, based on our knowledge of how other states have set up these definitions for enabling technology and assistive technology. We worked with DHS on that. We worked with the passes on those definitions, so that there's some a common set of definitions that will eventually be used. We also have been working with DHS on how will this be sustainable, how will this be worked into waivers, and we've gone down a couple of paths already. A 1915C waiver, and DHS paused and sort of rethought that approach and pivoted to an 1115 demonstration waiver. And at this point in time, they're assessing that approach as well. So, and this is not unique to Arkansas's DHS. These are important decisions that require a lot of thought and analysis. So what we're trying to do is provide the options that are available and how those might be best practice changed based on our knowledge from some other states. And then lastly, we essentially pivoted back and said, well, let's just take those recommendations on waiver language, provide that waiver language guidance in a way that could be used no matter how DHS chooses to approach this. So a little bit of a agnostic approach in terms of we're not too tied up in how DHS wants to use these. We want to make sure that things are worded appropriately and all the main things are covered. So there's been a lot of work going, and I know this is important work for all of the folks on this call, because this really will inform funding and reimbursement and all that stuff in the future. So where it sits with this is reviewing with the passes, and they'll be providing the grant team with feedback on that waiver language that we provided. And I do see a question just come up here in the chat, so let me. Is everyone hearing me clearly? Amy's not able to hear me clearly. I got a thumbs up from Brad.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, thanks, Jen. And Dayton gave me a thumbs up. Not sure, Amy. Hopefully it comes through on the recording very clearly for you. All right, any questions on the waiver and where we're at?
Is there a specific time frame for when a decision by, like when can we expect the grant team to provide the passes with feedback? And then, is there a timeline for this?
So, and Annie, you can jump in if you want to.
Sure. Do you want me to? Yeah, we've been, so DHS is looking for a time to discuss this with the passes. So our work is done. We've worked on definitions, provider types, all the bullets that are up there. I think Melissa and team are looking for a time to meet with the passes to get your feedback. And then what my understanding is then form work groups with the passes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would add that we have suggested to DHS that there's some urgency to this because folks are going to be convening in Little Rock for the summit. Some of those folks are not involved in this pilot at all, but are interested in enabling technology and what this is going to look like going forward. So we don't want DHS to arrive there without certain decisions being made and some vision of what it's going to look like in April. So we are pushing them to go through this and make some communications out that would be, just clear to everybody what the approach is going to be.
Hey, Paul, this is Brad. I've got a question, and maybe you or Annie can answer it or someone else. But so when the passes come to the table with you guys, is there any opportunity for a few providers to be at the table as well?
Really good question, Brad. So we've encouraged work groups to like other states do, maybe 2 people per pass provider, and have work groups. We have good definitions and then work through your questions. So that's been suggested.
Okay, thank you.
I'm noting that as well, Brad. I just want to, as we can continue to bring it up. Okay. All right, so moving on from the waiver recommendations. So what have we been doing with provider engagement? So this will be the least surprising slide for the providers who are on the call. We talk about this stuff all the time. We did a kickoff. All your MOUs are signed. We've got 10 providers engaged in the pilot, which is very important, and that was our goal. All the providers are fully enrolled in Shift. Shift is happening. The overall, these numbers are from last week, so I think they're up a little bit, but we had 68% completion for all learners, 73% completion for the providers, and we have 3 providers who have completed all of their learning. So progress is really moving forward in terms of Shift education. We're really happy about that. And those providers who have completed their learning, and so that can be, so I'll talk about it in 2 ways. One of the certification tracks is enabling technology integration specialist. That's a Shift learning certification. And as the handful of folks at each provider finish their ETIS, they are then capable of doing assessments. And so as they finish, even if some folks on the more introductory class are not done, once those ETIS folks are empowered with the knowledge that they have and the support of our SMEs, they are beginning assessments. So we've got provider assessments started. Each provider is paired with a SME, either Annie or Elena or Harold. You've met some combination of those folks in other meetings. And from what I understand, the first installation at CareLink is actually scheduled for this week. So we'll have our first implementation, which is awesome. So congrats to them, but I know everybody else is moving forward as well. Thumbs up from Amy. Awesome.
Paul, just a quick update. We actually have 4 completed now, and 3 are right on the cusp. I mean, you're just so close. So good job.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. We are definitely close to the finish line. All
Paul,
right, so
can
the
you-
next,
Can you define for me, like, I'm on the pass side, what does exactly provider assessment stand for, and what does first installation mean? Like, if we were to define that out.
yeah, great question, Jen. And I'm glad you asked it because I'm going to make some assumptions on terminology that I've been using that probably isn't universal yet. Okay, so a screening and an assessment is something that the provider does with their members / beneficiaries, whatever terminology you want to use, folks who they're providing care for. And it is a screening in terms of their comfort level with technology, their experience with technology, and then an assessment of their day-to-day activities, whether it's in home or out in the community, and ways in which, and looking for ways in which technology can help them meet their outcomes, their stated outcomes. And so that's what the assessment is. You walk away from the assessment with a full picture of the person's day-to-day activities, and then working with the SMEs at this point to come up with suggested technologies that could help them achieve their outcomes. First installation means either you bought something off the shelf that's going to help that person day to day, that's technology related, or you've engaged with a vendor who provides a particular service or product, and you have that installed at the house. So it could be door sensors, it could be a bed sensor, it could be Ring doorbell. There's all sorts of things that would need an installation, and possibly the provider can do it. Sometimes you bring in an outside installer, but hopefully that helps to clarify the terms.
It sure does. Thank you, Paul.
You got it. All right. Yeah, and Annie's comment in the chat also. So the screening aspect reviews the person's readiness for tasks. So very concisely put in, Annie. Thank you. All right, DHS and PASS engagement, very quickly. We did kickoffs with both groups. Both groups have learners enrolled in Shift. We've got a bi-weekly core team meeting going on with the grant team, which is Annie, myself, Elena, Harold, Rachel, and DHS and the PASSes. So that goes on every other Wednesday. And then Andy in the last 2 weeks has held individual meetings with the PASSes where she's been discussing their approach going forward, and also some of the processes that we're using during the pilot project. So yeah, and Annie, your hand is up, so please add on.
Just while there's some of the PASSes are here, just a reminder to, I think there's one PASS person that's signed up for the summit. So if you don't have the link to the agenda, we can send it to you. It's really good speakers for PASS point of view. Michelle Morse-Jernigan is going to speak from Tennessee, who has implemented technology successfully as an MCO with the 2 waivers, and also Patty Killingsworth, who was, I think Patty's title was Deputy of LTSS, who was instrumental in Tennessee's efforts to be tech first. So please sign up, get your table. We just had a meeting Paul, I think you said one person. So I know you all have to check internally for all of those permissions. So whoever's on the call, can you just remind the internal person to do that? Thank you.
And thanks Annie for that reminder. And I just posted the link into the chat to the summit, so you can see all the speakers there. You can see all of the topics that are going to be covered, and you can register at that link as well. Cool. Any other questions on the PASS and DHS engagement? All right, vendor engagement and collaboration, and this is a space where I don't think we've provided a lot of updates to the folks on this call. We've been working with vendors now for 2 months at least, to get them prepared for what this project is and how they can be a part of it. So we did a kickoff with them. We do bi-weekly check-in meetings with them. What we're doing at those meetings is we're really explaining the pilot to them, updating them on things like how the waiver updates are going, making sure they have a clear understanding of how many providers are in the pilot, and what their opportunities going forward in Arkansas might look like. So we sort of brain dumped a list of, I don't know, it's like 25 or 30 vendors. Reached out to them, and anybody who wanted to join into this call was welcome to. There's a sort of screening process of the vendors. Early on in that process, we created a matrix of possible enabling technology and remote support services that vendors could offer, and we sent that matrix out. And the vendors were really good about responding and checking the boxes as to what services they provide. So we published that matrix out to all the providers. So as the providers screen folks and assess individuals that they serve, they can consult the matrix to see, well, okay, who does door and window sensors, or who does toilet related or bathroom related technology devices, and it helps narrow down, like, okay, who can I outreach to, rather than, you know, just a blank slate of 30 vendors that they have to piece through. Annie, your hand is up. Go right ahead.
Yep. On the matrix note, I sent the link, I think, to each of the past groups that I met with. If you want it, we can put it in chat here. I can go find it, Paul, or you might have it at your fingertips. But feel free to reach out to those. There's several tabs, and there's one with their contact information. So please feel free to reach out to any of those vendors to learn more about it. I'm sure they would be more than happy to do a demo for your teams that want to know more. So if you're wondering what's out there. Thank you.
We're updating the matrix as we go. So as some of you providers have been reaching out saying, hey, I had a great meeting with XYZ vendor, we're adding them to the list. We're asking them to fill out the matrix, and we're trying to have a big tent of vendors who might want to participate. And the other thing we're doing, and we'll start one in about 10 minutes, we've been doing 15-minute vendor spotlight presentations. So most of you are on the Thursday call, so you've seen those. We're actually having one on this call today, and those are going to continue through, I think we're scheduled out through October. So we're going to have another 8 or 10 vendors do spotlight. All right, almost done with my piece here. And then the last is sustainability planning. And this is where we certainly need to kick into gear. April 1st, going to come way sooner than we hope it will. So far, we've created a website that we've shared out with you that has a lot of information about the project. We've shared that with DHS, and they've made it available on their webpage. We've talked to them about transitioning that website to them come April. We've been engaged with DHS communications and marketing team about not just communicating about the pilot and the enabling technology overall initiative, but also communications around the summit and making people aware that the summit is happening on November 18th and 19th. But quite frankly, the meat and potatoes of what needs to be done is to work out what the processes are going to look like as April approaches and DHS begins to sort of own this enabling technology, and Andy and I are, riding off into the sunset. So there's still a lot of work to be done there, and a lot of that work has a long lead time. So we need to make sure we're really active with DHS, with the passes, with the providers around what that's going to look like come April 1st. So a lot of work is still needs to be done there, but we're actively pursuing. Any questions on sustainability? Okay, if not, I'm going to switch screens. So I'm going to unshare for a second. Also, hello, Avery. I just wanted to recognize I saw you join, and we're going to be, I think, right on time for 10:30 start.
Fantastic.
All right, the next thing I want to share, bring up a different screen here. Hopefully this is big enough for you to see. I think all the providers have seen this. I don't recall if I shared this out with all stakeholders. So this is, and I'll make this a little bit bigger. Let's try that. Okay, so this is a rough timeline of what this entire project is going to look like. Broken out by major work streams. And I want to just have everybody have a visual of this to just sort of see the expanse of time some of these things take, sort of what should be done by now, what should be starting up soon. So shift training is coming to an end. As Patrick said, so many of the providers are getting very close to finishing. We certainly want to get that completed in the next week or two. And as that happens, it starts unlocking a lot of things. So the writing of policies and procedures. So a lot of your HIPAA policy, your person-centered care approach should be documented. And to the extent that you have existing policies and procedures, they should be updated. This is the providers to include enabling technology in the language. So sometimes it's a brand new document. Sometimes it's a new paragraph or some new wording on an existing document, but all of that should be reviewed. And our SMEs are here to support the providers in making those updates. And then providers are identifying individuals through screening and doing assessments. And again, those assessments have already started, but I expect they're going to continue through, probably through October, with the goal of 20 individuals per provider to be assessed and identified for technology use. So 20 is not a small number. These assessments and the work around it can take some time. Our SMEs are reviewing and approving, and then there's a long window here in terms of technology implementation. So this can be quick. This can be going to Best Buy and picking up a Ring doorbell and installing it. This could be an entire system of home sensors that are going to speak to a hub and are going to need to be programmed to send out alerts to staff members, and that can be a long lead time. So that's why we really want assessments, closing up sometime at the end of October, so that nobody gets caught without enough time to actually get the implementations completed. In addition, and this is going to, I'll be communicating out some initial survey information that we're going to ask you. And it's very basic information about individuals' attitudes and comfort in their day-to-day activities. But there'll be an entire data outcomes process that we need to communicate more fully to you on, so that we can have a good baseline measure of the individual's day-to-day activities versus future. So we'll be working on that. And then last thing on this list is we've got providers who are applying for accreditation with SHIFT. And the accreditation process and the approval of accreditation by SHIFT. Again, both of those are work streams that you need to work with Patrick and Jill on to complete as we go along. So just, for a visualization, this is what this is looking like and kind of where we are right now. All right, I'm going to pause there for any additional questions. Okay. Afterwards, I'll make sure everybody has a copy of this high-level timeline. And I will certainly be posting the video.